Okay. Lighting equipment doesn't count in the scheme of gas. Lenses and cameras do, and tripods and camera bags, but lighting does not. Well, sure it does. No, it does not. If you're going to make a promise for 2017, if you don't have it already, promise to buy yourself at least like a $10 light stand. If you're not going to buy an expensive, the really expensive Luma Pros are really, really heavy. You see this little thing here? How lightweight it is, and it folds up. And, who gives a damn if you break it? Go down to your camera store, order a couple of these. Realistically, since they're only $10 a pop, shipping's going to cost you more than the damn light stand. Order a couple light stands. Umbrellas are all over the place on eBay. Buy a decent one. Buy a Westcott. Buy a two-way. Two-way. A reversible. Is a removable back. So you can actually use it as a shoot-through umbrella, which is very nice. Buy yourself a couple umbrellas and a couple light stands. I mean, that's going to run you $50. I assume you already have a speed light. The most important part of photography, other than obviously, everything begins and ends right here, is lighting. And it's not lenses. I mean, having a really good lens, especially for portraiture. I mean, so if you're a street photographer, which I assume a lot of people you dabble in that, or a wildlife photographer, you don't have a need for this. Or a landscape photographer. If you do any portraiture at all, if you shoot any subject like macro, not out in the field obviously, but if you do any portraiture at all, I mean, buy yourself a couple light stands and a couple umbrellas, and buy a studio strobe. You get a Paul-C, and I know a lot of you people don't live in the United States and can't buy the Paul-C Buff. Well, technically you can. You can use a forwarding agency to have a Paul-C Buff studio strobe sent to you, but buy a Digibee, an 800 Digibee. You could use the WYSIWYG LED illumination of the modeling lamp alone. It's so helpful and useful for so many things, much less, the xenon tube of the strobe itself. 160 watt second. Buy a studio strobe. Obviously, if you're a street photographer, a landscape photographer, you don't need that. Is it useful for wedding photography? Yeah, a lot of wedding photographers actually go outside, they set up a battery pack, and they find a nice scenic area. This is all part of pre-planning out the wedding. And, they find a spot for proper portraiture of the bride and groom and whatever sort of packages they sell the person. Speedlight isn't going to cut it. Got to have a studio strobe and a power pack. You do. Other than that, if what I actually use, if you don't have a power pack, you're going to be within like 30 feet or so of the building, buy a 50-foot roll-up of, extension cord. I have an extension cord. It's mine's 75 feet actually. It's a roll-up extension cord to drop power to your studio strobe. That way you can actually burst them off really quick. Because when it comes to weddings, you don't want to take up the bride and groom's time. You should make a promise to yourself for 2017 and I know most of you haven't done it, to invest in some lighting equipment. Lighting is everything. Sensor saturation is everything. When you have control of have some lighting, then, you need to work on control, where to actually place the light and what to mod it with. Do you know how many different mods you could stick on a studio? Look at this home. I've got hundreds of videos on interesting, unique stuff that you could build, out of reflective tape, ducting tape. It's actually silver. That and foam board. You can make all sorts of fascinating mods for your studio strobe. Very, 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 very cheaply. It's about lighting, then it's about control of the lighting. Like the grid, too. You know how useful a honeycomb grid on a studio strobe is? Do you have any fucking idea? A honeycomb grid inside of a reflector dish on your studio. You know how incredibly useful that is for portraiture. It'll just send you to the next level. That and like an Omega reflector. The Omega reflector's just been redesigned. Everybody wanted a round hole on the Omega reflector. Consider buying one of those for $100. If you have an Omega reflector, a freaking light, even if you get only a $10 light stand, I wouldn't recommend that for your studio strobe. Not that you have an issue with that. Just remember, if you take it outside, you need to sandbag it so it doesn't blow over and, break your studio strobe and hit somebody else in the head and they end up suing you. with a $400 studio strobe and a $100 Omega reflector and some freaking $10 umbrellas and a couple $20 light stands. I mean, you can own it all. I mean, you also need a grid. A grid will run you $30. All of that stuff together will cost you less than one good lens. It'll totally change all of your photography. It's not going to change your street photography or your landscape photography, but all of that will completely transform your damn photography. Why don't they connect it in their brains? So instead of that next lens, spend the money on a studio strobe and a softbox, or preferably an octabox. I'm a big fan of it. Yeah, the light is actually different out of an octabox than it is out of a softbox. I mean, I got tons of softboxes. They're very portable. My favorite of the Pulse Buff softboxes. This is a 30 by 40. This is actually puts up and puts down really, really fast as a Pulse Buff a softbox. I think this is a 30 by 40 inch. Only weighs a couple pounds. Throw this in your trunk. That and the light stand and a studio strobe and a 50-foot extension cable. Or if you're out in the woods, a power pack. Power pack will run you $230. Imagine what it means to take a studio strobe and a softbox. That stuff doesn't weigh that much. You could pack it all in one hand in a bag, and then your camera bag on your other shoulder. You go out and you do a model shoot out in the woods or some arboretum, or some scenic place when the sunrise or sunset. Once you actually control your subject illumination, you also control your ambient illumination, because you can expose for your ambient and then raise your subject illumination however and wherever the hell you want. Once you have, that costs less than one good lens. What are you waiting for? Why don't I ever get fielded questions about studio strobes? I do, but almost not as lens. I understand. I love talk about good lenses and new lenses, and it's a better lens, this is a better lens, that about. What about fucking lighting, goddammit? That's so important. It's more important. I could do a lot more with a shitty lens and good lighting than I can with an awesome lens and no lighting. And that is a hardcore fact. Why don't people realize that? That is way more important. This is one of the things where you go like this. You go, you understand what that means? I could do a lot more with a shit lens and good lighting than I can with an awesome lens and no lighting. I'm an ambient light photographer. Good for you. Let me know how that shit works out. That ain't gonna work for portraiture. It's not. Well, can I get by with a speed light? You can, but not really. It's kind of like saying, can you go to war with a BB gun? Well, you can, but not really. You feel me? Is that a good analogy? Was that a good analogy? I thought it was a pretty good analogy. What did you think? I want a t-shirt that says, make light your bitch. Would somebody make me a t-shirt that says that? Except it seems so sexist, but it's funny. It's just funny. Make light your bitch. Wouldn't that be a good t-shirt? That's my motto. Speaking of which, I gotta get up early tomorrow and go out and with the softbox, and I'll only be gone for a few hours, but anyway, that's me thinking out loud. Think about lighting, alright? Bye. If you like this video, drop me a buck or two. Go tell me to jump off a cliff. Whatever makes you happy. But please, God, instead of buying that next lens, unless you really, really must have it, think about investing it in a studio strobe and like a light stand. This light stand here's $10. That ain't gonna set you back too much, is it? It is actually, well, not very awesome. It is perfectly valid to have a nice $400 studio strobe and a crappy Chinese $10 light stand. This is okay. If it breaks, you go, fuck it. It was only $10. I got a bunch of these. I got the really, really nice ones over here. But they're really, 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 really heavy. It's like, yeah, it's indestructible, but it's also really heavy. Thanks for watching. Bye.